I really hope that the construction from my neighbors isn't too loud. I really hope you can't hear it in the video, but I wanted to jump on the video today out here in the beautiful sun and tell you guys the story of how I started practicing Draconic Wicca before I really even knew what it was, and what my practice looked like as a kid and my connection to the dragons as a child. And it's especially focused on the elemental dragons, so you definitely are going to want to stay tuned for this entire episode because it is a wonderful ride through my childhood. But if you're new here, assalamu alaikum, merry meet, and welcome back to your daily dose of DragonFaether. My name is Azura DragonFaether, the Draconic Priestess, and today I will be your host for sharing how I started practicing Draconic Wicca before I even knew what that was. So I love dragons and have always loved dragons my entire life. They're such an important part of my practice, and ever since I was little, the dragons and their symbolism became a way for me to not only navigate the world, but the way that I saw the world and how I was able to express myself. That's probably the most important part of the story, is that I used dragons as a little girl to really grasp and understand the world around me, and it's how I understood the mountains and the trees and the skies and the oceans and the volcanoes and the flames and all of it. I saw it perceived through the eyes of the dragons, through their expressions, their many different embodiments, their types, their abilities, their powers, if you will. And this was absolutely informed by Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Dragonology and all of those things that are considered childish. But the reason why this world makes dragons like a fantasy creature for kids nowadays is because there's just so much power and so much wisdom and so much freedom within the symbolism and the history and the magic of the dragons. And in my childhood, I found this reality out very, very quickly, and especially when anything that the dragons were really involved in, right? Like, for example, when I was really, really little and Pokemon first came out, it was the dragon type that was the strongest, most overpowered type, right? And in Yu-Gi-Oh! It was Blue Eyes White Dragon that was like the most like ferocious monster, right? But it was always these archetypes of, you know, absolute dominance, the dragons being the apex predators of our imaginations. And I really ran with that so much as a kid. And while I'm doing my moving, I will eventually make a video about the pantheon of dragons that I made when I was a little girl in elementary school. I would love to share that story with you guys and share the actual art that I have, because I did save them, okay? I wasn't gonna just throw that away. But I used to have this like pantheon of dragons that I made and taped to the wall of my closet behind all my clothes. So when I went in my closet, I did like these meditations in my closet. I was literally practicing in the closet before I even knew what that meant, and was just kind of like, you know, using these different dragon forms and personifications to represent different elemental forces. And that is essentially what really started my practice of Draconic Wicca before I even knew what that was, because my whole entire life has been very much like focused on and ruled by my perception of elemental dragons. And I know some people might think that's really weird, but like, this is just my story, right? And I'm not ashamed of it, because my whole life it's been the dragons that helped me understand and navigate this world. It's been the dragons that helped me understand and navigate my own inner world, and it's also been the dragons that helped me understand others and feelings and expressions and, you know, different, you know, like, look at all this beauty, right? Like, this elemental part of this life is so fundamental to the reality of like being alive on Earth, right? There's just no way to avoid the elemental facts of life here, right? Even the elemental forces within our bodies and within, you know, space outside of our planet, like all of it is so interconnected. And I saw it all interconnected through dragons when I was a little girl. And now, you know, as an adult, I have a more like organized, a more ritualistic process. Please excuse this very loud plane. But, you know, I have this more like, the word would be like, structured. There we go. The word is structured now. My practice is structured, but when I was a kid, it was very much intuitively driven by elemental dragons and elemental types of dragons. And I would do these meditations in my closet, and I would focus on various types of elemental dragons, or as I, would have like different like dragon gods that I made essentially to personify the elements and to personify the different aspects of our world and our reality. And I would focus on the sun dragon god, or I would focus on the ocean dragon god, or I would focus on the volcano dragon god. And I would just sit in my closet and close my eyes, and I would just think, and I would just be still, and I would just see what these themes and the understanding of these elemental forces coupled with the image of dragons, what did that look like for me? And what wisdom was there? Like, what was I able to learn from this? Like, what was hidden, if you will, beneath the surface? And this was truly one of my favorite parts of my practice, because it really helped me have like a safe space and a practice that was entirely my own at the time. I didn't tell anyone about how much I loved dragons this way, about how I meditated in my closet with little dragon gods that I made for myself. You have to understand, this was like when I was in elementary school. When this was like happening, I was like in like 4th or 5th grade, I think. And it was just, one of my favorite parts of my journey, because little did I know that like Draconic Wicca was like a movement that was starting to kind of take root, and dragon magic was very new on the scene still. People like understood the mythology, people understood the ancient power of it, but really, as the way we know dragon magic today, it was really just starting to take hold at that time when I was in elementary school. But I had no idea, because like obviously I wasn't like reading these books, I wasn't online like this yet. It was like very much at the turn of the century, if you will, from like the 1990s to the 2000s, and it was all about this concept of like a new world, like this futuristic energy was everywhere, but also like there was this huge trend of like ocean creatures at that time, and like aquatic animals and aquatic like aesthetics and stuff. And so I had like this bathroom that was like dolphin themed. I know this seems so random, but like I had this bathroom that was like dolphin themed, and it was always my time in the shower that I would like pretend to be a dragon. I would pretend to be like, this like dragon, like fairy almost, but I didn't have the words for that yet. And I was just trying to, explore and express myself and be creative, while I was using my imagination for the most part in many of these experiences. That doesn't change the fact that I was exploring with my inner world and my inner understanding of reality and how dragons fit into that for me. And I would create these really nice like bath time experiences where I would dim the lighting, and I would light candles, and I would put on music, and I would just allow myself to freely express myself, lock my doors, and I just wouldn't even worry about anyone else. And this is why on my channel I've always been an advocate, if you're in like the broom closet, or if you're just like closeted in any kind of practice, like practice in the shower, you know what I mean? Like no one can bother you in the shower, and if people are bothering you in the shower, that's concerning, and you should call like CPS or something. Basically what I'm trying to say is that like your shower time is sacred to you and to your like taking care of your body and cleaning yourself and making sure that you're well. And like it's a time when you're alone in a secluded space where no one can really intrude upon that. And so this is why I've always told like you guys, the hatchlings, and just anyone, whoever views my videos, to start practicing in the shower, or like start practicing in the bathtub, because like it really provides that safe capsule, if you will. Like that's kind of like why my practice started this way when I was so young, and I loved listening to like music and like putting on this like show for myself in the shower. I know, I was a child, what do you want me to say? But it never changed the fact that it was always these elemental dragons that I was reaching out towards, that I was personifying, that I was understanding and working with, in the sense of taking literal journeys with them in a meditative way, in a very trance-like way, and not really having the words for that, not really having like the language to describe what I was doing. This is why, if you've missed my video, did my 2009 journal Predict Draconic Wicca, that video I showcase one of my journals about how I was so fascinated and obsessed with elemental dragons. That has always been a thing for me, okay? Like, I collect Yu-Gi-Oh cards that are dragons because they're just all these different kinds of elemental dragons, and the way that my brain works, I was like, okay, so I like need all of these in order to complete the collection and have all the elements, right? That's a little autistic of me, but it doesn't change the fact that like dragons have always been my special interest, and I have just run with that my whole life, and I will be especially interested in dragons until the day I die, okay? So, you know, I know some people might think that like, you know, you have to have a certain structure to start your practice, that you might have to be initiated to start your practice, that you might have to do it in this like formal way to start your practice. And honestly, my story was never like that. And just because some people believe that doesn't mean that like my story isn't valid. Like, my experience with the dragons has been very, very intuitively guided, and has been very much a part of my childhood, and has been very much a part of my ability to navigate the world and connect with other people. It's always been a safe haven for me to explore what I love in a world that scares me. It's always been a way for me to have courage and have strength to fight people who wanted to snuff out my light, for people who abused me and used me for their own desires. No, it was the dragons and their symbolism that reminded me my time hadn't come yet, that I needed to keep going. There was something that I had to, you know, I had to do this lifetime, and I couldn't let anyone hold me back, and I couldn't let anyone, you know, take that away from me. And this is really what set my connection with dragons as a kid, and how, you know, my Draconic Wicca has really started to take hold when I was in my teenage years. And a lot of people, you know, they'll have many questions for me about like, you know, when did you start working with dragons, and like when did your practice start, and like this and this and that. And it's really genuinely always such a difficult question for me to answer, because I don't think I know the answer. The truth is that like, I just, ever since I can remember being alive, I remember dragons being part of that, you know. And I feel so blessed and so loved by the dragons, and I love their symbolism, I love their magic, I love everything about them. But more than anything else, the way that I really connected with dragons, especially as a kid and even still today, is their elemental personifications, the elemental dragons, and being the rulers, I guess, if you will, over these elemental forces. And that really has given me such hope and such grounded focus in navigating this world that would otherwise seem a little too confusing for me. So that is how I was kind of practicing Draconic Wicca before I even really realized it. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you missed yesterday's video, you're definitely going to want to go check out my story time about my intuitive draconian initiation ritual. I share a really sacred, special moment of how I spontaneously initiated myself into the draconian path, guided by my dragons, and so you don't want to miss that episode for sure. But stay tuned for tomorrow's episode, because we have another story time for you guys, and I'm not too sure what tomorrow's story time is going to be about, but it'll be a good one, as you guys know. And as always, thank you so much for spending some of your day with me today. I love sharing my stories with you, I love making content for you, and this is truly the best part of my life. And so I literally couldn't thank you enough for clicking on my video and leaving me a comment and hitting subscribe and hitting like and sharing with your friends. It really means the world to me, and thank you for all of your love and support. But until next time, stay geeky, cheeky, and freaky, a little hatchlings. But Gaddafi's blessed be. Amen. And please follow me so I don't get lost. We'll see you. Bye.